she had said she was like had a lot of things going on that day. Okay, that's probably why. Why? Hey, I would like to call to order today's special meeting of the Tipton Community School Corporation School Board. We're going to begin with our first thing on the agenda, which is to review our tentative agreement between the school corporation and the Tipton Education Association.
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for taking the time to have this special meeting. This is one of the legislative requirements that we must participate in, along with our friends from the TEA. And so I have a short PowerPoint just to kind of highlight some of the changes that were part of the negotiations process. And so we'll just kind of get started here. I did share this with you earlier. There is one small revision, and I'll talk to you guys all about that here in a second. Okay, so in general, the highlights, we only had a 1-year agreement. We typically like to do a 2-year agreement with some concerns about what money looks like in the year 2. We just felt like maybe a 1-year agreement may be a little bit more appropriate. What the highlights are is a $1,000 increase to the base salary. So our starting pay will be $42,500. We did make some changes in ECA stipends, just kind of reallocating some dollars along those lines, and then a change in retirement pay, and then teacher leadership pay. This is what is a little bit different. I took this language directly from the tentative agreement contract, and this was reviewed by Andrew and Churchill and Antrim. So just kind of the only difference is really the process on how we notify both the TEA president and myself if we have teachers who are interested in taking the voluntary separation pay. Again, we put a limit on this to the first 5. The way we keep track of that is through school email that is sent both to Amy and to me. It has a time date stamp, and therefore it becomes an official record. Again, there is also a little bit of a out in case of a catastrophic event that might occur. Obviously, death of a spouse, loss of employment by the spouse, or a qualifying financial hardship. Once again, we need to do those things from time to time because we do want to give teachers the option. If they had to rescind, they would have to have a good reason. But again, allowing them that out for the voluntary separation pay, and they would need to do that by June 1.
Do the teachers know what qualifies as a financial hardship? That just says qualifying, but is there parameters around that for them?
Well, essentially, we've kind of outlined death of a spouse, loss of employment by a spouse, a qualifying financial hardship may be. That would be something that we probably would have to really talk about what that would be. Of course, I would assume that would be, something to the effect of, a catastrophic health event or something like that has just created a huge amount of burden on the employee. Those would be all things that we would discuss before we would rescind, along with the TEA. This is just something that we've had in language in the past. A couple of years ago, we created an MOU that had the same language, and again, that was another Churchill and Antrim. They just like to give that out in case, but we can definitely.
We have this in contracts, and I think it's important that we put some parameters around that because what the teacher may consider a qualifying financial hardship, the district may not.
Okay.
And so having either striking the language or having some parameter around what that means. You've lost X percent of your income.
Okay.
You've lost a real estate value of X.
Right.
Because if you're in financial hardship, everything qualifies, right? If
Sure,
you're the victim,
sure,
if you're
sure.
paying out,
Right.
we get a little more. So my only suggestion would be maybe put some kind of idea around what that looks like
Sure.
for us, just for our protection and for
No.
the teachers.
No, I'm good. I'm
So,
good for that. We can have Andrew create that list.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's perfectly fine.
I'm just reading this the first time. So if I tell you by January 1, I'm not coming back next year.
That's
I
correct.
finish the
You're
spring
finishing the
semester.
school year. What the January 1 timeline gives us is an opportunity to figure out, is this a position we need to replace? Since
To
that's
fill
the
the
time that
position,
we're,
right.
is this the time that we're typically building the high school schedule? So it just gives us an opportunity to
Yeah.
know.
I get this. I guess my question, if a teacher, let's say this didn't exist, let's say a teacher decides they're not coming back, do they typically wait a long time to tell you? Is that why we're doing this?
No, I mean, typically we would know by March. But March is often too late in some situations because we've had students sign up for classes, and particularly high school where we have,
Yeah.
one teacher
Specialty
teaching
classes,
a single
yeah.
subject or something to that effect. So the incentive is to let us know early. And honestly, it's kind of an incentive for them as well because it does take some time to get everything going with their retirement if they would qualify for Rule of 85 or that process. And the other thing is we kind of took away the language that is in the current contract has language about being age of 55 and different situations like that. And we have taken away that language again to provide a little bit more incentive.
And then they would continue to receive their salary until whenever that,
Correct.
is that June? When is
The last day of school
The last day of
would technically, whenever that would be, depending if we have to do makeup days.
Okay.
So that would be their last day. So essentially they would either give us a letter of resignation, or a letter of retirement, depending on what they want to do. That would be effective the last day of school.
Okay.
No, that's good. Good questions. Professional compensation. Again, this is just in general kind of where we are with our compensation. As you can see, just kind of some past, some history of where we were back in 2020 and where we are right now. The state minimum is 40,000 for a beginning teacher, so we're a little bit above that. I would love to be more. I would love to be higher. However, finances just won't allow us to do that. So we are at 42.5, which again is still competitive. And then top of the scale is 79. In general and compensation, $1,000 increase to the base salary, and then a $1,000 increase to returning teachers rated effective or highly effective. And honestly, what we call that is just kind of a move down. You notice that there's a scale that we have in the contract, so they would move down a letter or a level when they, if they were rated effective or highly effective, which would give returning teachers an overall $2,000 increase, but teachers that were hired this year would get the $1,000 base increase. So how this all works out. So 101,000 for the base increase. The move down is going to cost about 92,000. Then subtotal, all of the benefits and everything else that would be a part of that process. So an overall package is going to cost us around 227,000. The other thing that we talked about earlier was the elimination of 15 unused or antiquated academic and athletic extracurricular stipends, totaled to be around 21,700. We reallocated those funds and put it into areas where we feel like teachers were asked to do a lot and take up a lot of their time in order to fulfill the responsibilities. And we also wanted to, right now, we currently have very little academic team sponsorship going on, and that's something I think we should be doing. So we really ramped up what that stipend would be, and hopefully it will encourage some people to step up and to sponsor those teams. We also added a stipend for building leadership teams. Building leadership teams have changed dramatically with the PLC process. Their meetings are typically after school. They do meet once a month, and they also are part of the whole school improvement process. So they're working in tandem with the principals as far as developing school improvement plans. So those responsibilities have changed quite a bit, and we felt like we needed to compensate them more for that time because it is a demanding, it is a much more demanding experience than what it has been previously. We did add in stipends for service clubs, primarily through the Kiwanis. These were clubs that were previously sponsored by those service organizations, but they were unable to continue to support those. So we added in stipends in order to get that, in order to get those clubs going again. And then you also will notice a $1,000 stipend for, it's actually going to end up being BPA, and that's really more so because of the business strand that we're beginning to offer with IUK. And again, that opportunity to have a business professionals club is very important and an opportunity to really do a lot more with entrepreneurship. Teacher leadership stipends. This was a goal of mine. What I want to do is create incentives for our current staff to get credentials that are going to be beneficial to the school corporation and therefore to our students. Essentially, allowing them to be able to teach dual credit. When the friends that are my age and Amy's age decide to retire, we lose a whole lot of ability to offer dual credit. So we've got to create an incentive for teachers that are in our current pool to get those certifications. We've worked out ways where the cost for, say, getting the 18 hours of additional study through the IU pathway or pipeline, IU pipeline, that is free, but we wanted to, again, appreciate the time it takes for a teacher to get those credentials. It's honestly, in the case of for dual credit, it's really a 2-year process to try to get those 18 hours. So we wanted to create an incentive for that. There's also the opportunity specifically for anyone with a teaching license to take the praxis exam and to add another area that they can be certified in for teaching. So we wanted to create an opportunity for those particular situations. And then we also wanted to do something for the current teachers. We have a lot of teachers that have a current dual license or a minor or some other credentialing. So we did create a situation where they would get that one-time $300 stipend as long as their license is current with that credential. So in general, this is kind of what we're looking at as far as teachers that would get their credential after August of 23. High ability licensure, once again, that's a situation where there's quite a bit of study that needs to happen, and then they have to turn around and take the praxis test. The high ability licensure is offered through Ball State and offered through Purdue, but that is going to likely be at cost for the individual teacher. not as many hours as it takes to get like an ACP certification, but there still is a requirement for those hours. There is some opportunity occasionally with the high ability grant to use some of those dollars to help defer some of the cost. We've not really ever had the flexibility in that fund to be able to do that, but since we reorganized the way that we're going to be paying for some things, we may have that in the future. One very important part of a certification that we really need is really the multilingual. We've talked about this. We currently have 38 non-English speakers in the corporation. That is bigger than it's ever been, and I assume that's just going to continue to grow. So we need as many people as we can get to have that multilingual certification. Once again, there are some grants that can assist with the cost of that. But again, we're trying to reward their time and their effort for that. I'm sure you've heard of the Science of Reading literacy endorsement. This is actually coming out from the IDOE, and that plan will be rolled out sometime in January. So the state will actually pay for our teachers to get this certification, and then which I think is about 80 hours of learning and training. And then they have to turn around and again take the praxis exam in order to have this endorsement. And so the state is paying for that. Once again, we're trying to award their time. We've already talked about kind of the ACP certification and then the Indiana Core Transfer Library. So essentially, what we're talking about with the Indiana Core Transfer Library is these are courses that will transfer to any university in the state and will give the students credit when they go to their college. So we want to make sure that what our teachers are getting certification in will transfer to universities. And for the mostly anything that's on the ACP list is going to do that. SIOP certification, this is really a certification for teachers who have ML students in their classroom. And what the SIOP training does is provide them some methodology to work with multilingual students in order to promote a language-rich environment so that they can move forward in their English attainment. And so it just kind of gives some different strategies. That is a 2-semester certification. We do have some teachers that are in process of getting that. And we actually partner with our Education Service Center to provide those opportunities for SIOP. And then just an additional content area endorsement. So say, for instance, if Amy just had the urge to, teach biology, she could take a biology praxis and then she could teach biology. So again, that time and commitment, because it's going to take a little bit of studying, it's going to take a little bit of time in order to make that happen. The teacher would have to pay for the cost of the test, which I think the most expensive one is around 120. The least expensive, I think, is around 60. Pearson's got to get their money. So that's very, very important that Pearson gets their money. So.
Dr. Glaze, on
Yeah.
the science of reading,
Mhm.
since that's becoming a law, right, 24 sometime?
Yes.
Is that a required endorsement or?
It is a required endorsement for any elementary, special ed, and there's another category there. English, maybe.
Not everybody, but. especially
Yeah,
if
to
you're teaching
have the
reading at
science of
lower
reading
level.
endorsement when they graduate. But the state, through that Lilly grant, is providing existing teachers a pathway to get that.
So essentially, we'll be reimbursed the 2,400 for everyone that gets the endorsement.
Well, no,
Not the full
that would be something we would pay, but we would just pay the teacher for taking the time to get that.
Okay.
but the state would provide all of the training for,
They're providing the training.
yes, at no cost. Honestly, a pretty good deal. So, but again, it's, 80 hours.
Well, they're requiring it, so I would hope they would.
Yeah, but again, it's not
No.
required for existing teachers, though. Teachers that are currently working do not have to get it,
Oh.
but they're making it easy. Well, they're making it affordable for them to get it.
And we're incentivizing it. So.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Because we want as many teachers to have that certification as possible.
Absolutely.
And then they would have to turn around and take the praxis exam in order to have that on their license. So,
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Because I have not, but again, just seeing this. So, the praxis exam, is that the 120 that Pearson's getting their money for?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the teacher pays that. And then if I'm understanding this schedule correctly, I make $40,000 a year. Next year I'll make $41,000 a year. I get this one-time payment, but it doesn't influence my
Doesn't
base salary
Right.
to take on these additional responsibilities.
Correct.
Okay.
And honestly, we looked at a mechanism to do that, and we obviously just don't feel like we could afford it right now, because we do want to provide some kind of incentive for people to continue and to move forward. So the stipend was just kind of a 1-year thing that we're just kind of seeing how it's going to work out, and then we would love to have something that would be additional compensation.
So how do we discuss that as a board? Like, how do we ideate around a concept like that? Because to me, if you're gonna incent me for $1,200, you're gonna take taxes out of that, you're gonna charge me $140 for the test, then you're gonna ask me to do more work. I would like, I personally would want to
Right.
see a lift to my base.
Sure.
On,
And
so is there a time where we get to discuss those options?
Yep.
Or that's just?
I think there's definitely a time from now until we do the next contract. Yeah,
Um,
20,
hang on.
24, 25.
25.
And that's
Yeah.
really the conversation that we want to have. There's a lot of different ways to do it.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little bit of a difference as far as the time commitment and the level of additional work that is aligned to that. And kind of where we got into a conversation is some dual credit is not the same as other dual credit. And we need to create, like, say for instance, Ivy Tech dual credit is great, but it doesn't really provide anything. So we felt like we needed a year, and I've already talked to our people who are doing the Ivy Tech dual credit about industry certifications that we would ask for students to try to get in that process. So if I'm teaching welding, for instance, and I get dual credit for it, we would like to see the students get some kind of an industry certification out of that. So it's something they can take with
They
them.
leave it with their hand, they walk
Exactly.
across the stage,
Right.
diploma, certification,
Yes,
and we're employable
Right.
at a higher level.
absolutely.
Okay.
So those are the things that we just didn't have enough time to sort it all out when we really got engaged in the conversation. And so this year will give us some time, and it's also something that we can discuss as part of our strategic planning, which I think
Okay.
is pretty important.
I think that's important
Yeah.
because I think in today's environment, you're gonna ask me to spend 80 hours as a teacher, and I can go to Mike's Car Wash and make $22 an hour for 80 hours. And
Right.
This is not, and again,
Mhm.
this is almost punitive, right? This is almost like if there's a gap that exists between your, or Mrs. Cole's generation and your
Mhm.
generation. I'm gonna lump you two together.
Well, we are.
And
We're
then
the same.
my son.
Yeah,
my son
exactly.
who's coming out,
Right.
right, and wants to be a teacher. The incentive is gonna have to be, I think it's gonna have to be more significant. And so I would say as a board, we would want to probably brainstorm on that.
Yes.
On how we could possibly address that, and understanding all the pressures that we have budgetarily and all that. But that will be a hard sell, I think, to people people that are already kind of overworked
Oh,
for
yeah.
more work,
Mhm.
so to speak, for the risk and reward just doesn't
Sure.
seem, so
Sure.
I would say as a board, maybe we should look at that as part of strategic planning and use that to, retain and recruit
Absolutely.
the best and brightest teachers.
Absolutely, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying. And we spend a lot of time going back and forth trying to figure something out. I'll be
Again,
honest.
this is not a
And-
criticism, this is
Yeah,
a,
yeah.
hey, do we have a chance to
Sure.
talk about this?
Yeah.
And, can we have a bake sale or something?
Right, right,
Full of money
right,
that we
right.
distribute
Only if
out.
you lead it.
I will.
You
But
bake.
it would seem to me that if we've got, if the idea is to take our newer teachers,
Mhm.
get these certifications to help
Right.
backfill that.
Right.
And in today's economic environment, I think those numbers, we need to see what we can do
And-
for more sustainable.
And we do have that for dual credit classes currently in the
Yeah.
contract, and we just left that alone.
Okay.
But we need something else.
Okay.
And it just became, and really just not knowing what that impact could be financially,
Yeah.
that's the question. And so we just felt like there were too many variables in there that we really needed to explore before we did that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
talked about it significantly during our, during
Yeah.
those
Okay.
meetings,
And-
but I made a note of that because I.
Yeah,
did
No,
not
I
agree
think
with
it's,
you.
no, no, no,
Sorry,
no.
but I hadn't seen it.
No, no, no,
So
no,
I'm
no,
like,
no,
well,
no. I
yeah.
think that's very important. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's really was the goal. And I feel like that this is a step in the right
Mhm.
direction. But I believe we need to.
Right.
I'm in full agreement.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says they have to stay. We pay them $2,400 for getting the certification,
Well-
and then they use that to boost their resume. And I'm
I-
just,
there are some corporations that have that in their contract.
I just
And-
wondered if
and
it
those are questions that that we can look at. But there are some that do that. So essentially you're saying if we were giving you this and we're giving you this, then you're going to stay with us for X amount of years. I mean, it can't be like their whole life.
Right.
It can be like 3
You
years
get 2
or
or 3
2
years or
years
whatever.
or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah. So there are those kinds of things that I've seen in contracts, and those are things that we can add.
It's very prevalent in IT. Like if
Yeah.
if I pay you
Right.
to become an Azure
Yeah.
data engineer,
Right.
you give me 2 years, or we take back
Yes.
prorated what we
Exactly.
paid. So that's a good point, Eric.
Yeah.
That maybe some conversations
Yeah.
around that too, from a retention perspective.
I
that-
agree. I agree.
and instead of it hitting us for $2,400 in 1 year, maybe we pay them $800 each year of those 3 years. That's how I've seen it done on our
Sure.
side.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's hard to grab that money back if they leave. So I
Right,
don't just
right.
food for thought.
Yeah. No, I think those are all good ideas. Yeah. So once again, just kind of talking a little bit about the benefits. We did have a 4% increase in our premium, in the overall premium for health insurance. We really wanted to try to look at some ways that we can, try to reduce some of the employee cost on insurance as much as we can. So we will go ahead and absorb that 4% increase. And again, that's just something that we've done really for the past couple of years. And again, we want to make our benefits as affordable as possible. So kind of that overall impact. So this would be the corporation contribution in each one of these categories. We have 3 options for insurance with a single and a family plan. And so the dollars that are listed here would be the corporation's, what the corporation would pay.
So at some level, that 4% does act a little bit as a raise to them.
Yes, yes, in a way. And I mean, it costs us, I think in general, it's going to be about 34, 35,000, depending on, we always, we may have people that will add in insurance through the year if something happens with spouse's insurance or something to that effect. So we budget that it's going to be about 38,000. Right now, it's about 34. So we just kind of we just try to keep at least a little bit of a cushion there. So our overall increase in funding was 11 million. which was an increase of 378,000. So that was a 3.56% overall increase. So we essentially took the new money. We whittled down the curricular cost to about 38,000. We're still working on it. That is still a big mess, but we're trying to figure that out. And and it's not the IDOE's fault. They're just trying to figure it out too. So we get a lot of conflicting information, but we're figuring it out one way or another. And then health insurance increase, that's 34,764, and then after insurance and the curriculum materials, we really have around 305 new money. So again, the increase for our certified staff will be 227,786. So about a 74% of that of our funding is going to go towards certified raises, and that's about it.
Anything about para or subpay in this contract? It's not. That's a different.
That's a different thing. Now we've already given
We already did that.
the hour. Yes, the board agreed to do kind of a 2-year package for our hourly people, and so they went ahead and they got that in July. So that increase is already in there.
I thought so. I just.
Yeah. Now we've not increased our sub pay. Honestly, I think everybody's kind of caught up with us now that we're about where everybody else is. We were higher than most, but I think everybody's kind of caught up with us. Any other questions? Okay. All right.
I don't think we have any public comments
Did
today.
you want to have a public comment?
You sure? Okay. All right.
He's sitting back there at the table. Maybe he's writing his name. So, yeah.
All right. That's right. All right,
You-
then we need a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting today.
Motion to adjourn the.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Will say that one of the big